Good morning. We're so excited to have with us folks from the Department of Paid Family Medical Leave, Mary and Steve. So, Mary and Steve, our first question is for each of you to tell us a little bit about yourselves, and then we're so excited to hear your update.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for inviting us today. We're really delighted to be here. We have a whole lot of material to share with you, and so we're probably going to go at a pretty fast clip, but we're happy to answer questions. I've also brought a couple of other colleagues along, Tracy Geary, who heads up our ombudsman team, and Jasmine Crafts, who heads up our content strategy work. So I have been with the Department of Family and Medical Leave for over 3 years, and have seen the program grow. Delighted to see where the program is today. So I'm excited to share some of that with you. But I've had a pretty broad background prior to coming here, worked as the Deputy Registrar for the RMV, and prior to that was in the private sector. So I'm a mom of three, and happy to be here. Steve, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm a little under the weather today, but really happy to be here this morning. Looks like a great group, and always happy to have the opportunity to share information on PFML with folks and just spread the awareness around. I've been with PFML for about 2.5 years, and I work on the stakeholder engagement and the comms, um, and before that, I worked for a chamber of commerce for a long time. So. Good forward to presenting, and I hear this is an active group, so answering any questions that we can. And essence of time, I think we'll get started unless we want to introduce anyone else. I'll share.
Jasmine and Tracy, maybe you can say hi in the chat.
Yeah.
Would that work?
That'd be great. Thanks so much.
Works for me.
All right, so we're sharing. Everyone can see that?
We can see that, and that's the hardest part, Steve, of the 9:30 call. So you did it. And
Very
I apologize. Even when I introduced you, I said the wrong name. So thank you for clarifying and having it on the screen.
Well, there are a lot of acronyms, and it often gets conflated. So we understand that. So, as I said, I've got a lot of information for you. We are more than happy to answer any questions. And I think, Amy, you're going to be collecting those in the chat. Is that correct? So feel free to put your questions there. So I wanted to give you a quick overview of what PFML is. PFML is a program that provides temporary income replacement to eligible employees who are either welcoming a new child into their family, they themselves have a serious illness or injury, they need to take care of someone with a serious health condition who's a family member, or have certain military considerations. So in addition to the temporary income replacement, there are a couple of other benefits and protections that are really key to the program. One is that they have job protections that are similar to those provided through FMLA, but it requires that when an employee returns from their work, the employer needs to restore them to either the same position or an equivalent position that they had prior to going out on leave. And the other aspect is that if an employee gets health insurance benefits through their employer, the employer is going to have to continue to provide for, contribute to, or otherwise maintain their health insurance benefits. And they would then pay whatever portion of that cost that they would when the employee is not on leave. Wanted to just give you a quick visual comparison of PFML and FMLA because they are, in fact, they have similarities, but they also have some differences. FMLA, as you likely know, is a federal law, whereas PFML is a state law. One of the key differences here is that FMLA only applies to businesses where there are 50 or more employees. PFML is very different in that it applies to organizations or employers of all size. So it could be, a one-man band and they opt into the program and they would be covered under PFML. We also have some eligibilities differences here. For FMLA, someone has to be employed for at least 12 months in order to be eligible. And for PFML, an individual is actually eligible as soon as they start a job if they have met the earnings requirements in a previous position. In terms of employer responsibilities, for FMLA, it's an unpaid program, so there are no contributions. PFML is a paid program, so the employer is responsible for collecting and remitting PFML contributions. Yes, Catherine, you're right. We're going to get to that in just a second. The length of benefit is also different under FMLA and PFML. For FMLA, it's up to 12 weeks of leave, and for PFML, you could be eligible for up to 26 weeks of combined family and medical leave. And there are certain exclusions to the PFML program that follows the unemployment legislation in that regard. So unfortunately, municipalities are not eligible for PFML unless they opt into the program. So there's an opt-in provision that allows individuals who are self-employed to opt into the program. And it also allows for municipalities to opt in if they get approval from and go through a process in order to get that approval. But they are eligible if they opt in.
There was a question about the length of service credit. Does that mean the time on FMLA counts in their employment?
For FMLA, yes, there's a requirement that they have that 12 months and the 1,250 hours worked. For us, it's not time served. It is that they meet the eligibility requirements in terms of earnings.
Okay, great. The chart is so helpful. Thank you.
We could have a lot more lines on that chart, but
Yes.
we're to the top line. So I want to give you a quick rundown on the types of leave that are available. There's family leave and there's medical leave. Medical leave is the most straightforward, where you're taking time off to care for your own serious health condition. And family leave has three different components. There's bonding leave, where you take time to bond with a new child that comes into your family, either through birth, adoption, or foster care placement. And we also have caring leave, where you can take time to care for an individual in your family that has, again, a serious health condition. And then there are several provisions for military, where someone can take time off to manage the affairs of someone who has been deployed or notified that they're being deployed. And there's also a little more generous time frame involved for caring for a family member. So just want to give you a visual here of in terms of the amount of time that you can take off. You can take off up to 26 weeks in a benefit year, and that benefit year is based on when you take leave initially. So it's not based on a calendar year. So so you can take up to 26 weeks over the course of the benefit year, and you can combine family and medical leave in any way that's appropriate to get to that total of 26. So for a family leave, you can take up to a total of 12 weeks of leave. And so if you're caring for a family member and have a new child in your family, then you're going to have to figure out, how you want to distribute that 12 weeks, because you can only take a total of 12 weeks for that family leave. So you can combine the family leave with medical leave to get up to the 26-week maximum. So we have a couple of different leave schedules that it's important for you to know about. Someone can take leave on a continuous basis. So that's a single time period with consecutive uninterrupted days. You can also take reduced leave, which would be a consistent schedule. Say you're only able to work 4 hours a day, then you could take leave on a reduced basis. If, however, your situation is more episodic, where you have irregular periods of time or unexpected periods of time that you need to take off, then an intermittent leave would be most appropriate for you. One of the things that I wanted to really highlight here, and this could have been a line item on our graphic, is that the definition of family member is very different for PFML than it is with FMLA. PFML is much more broad in terms of its definition, and so it's important for an employee to recognize that even if they're not eligible for FMLA because the family relationship isn't covered, they very well could be covered under PFML.
Just a note, Mary, there throughout the presentation, there's embedded links. So when you receive the presentation, you can, click on those for more information. So
And I should have said, Steve, thanks for that, that this is like our first conversation and we know that you have a lot of information. And
A
so
lot.
we hope that this will be a continuing conversation. Some of the psychological needs for a family member fall under PFML.
Yes. Yes, a serious health condition can be a behavioral concern, or it can be a medical concern. So, it covers situations where people take off time for, addiction or any sort of a mental condition that they're treating. So
The data.
I'll be happy to go back and answer questions about the program itself and how it works, but I wanted to give you an idea of the scope of the program. And we have just finished our third full year of offering benefits, and that has pushed us over the $2.5 billion mark in terms of benefits. Last year, we gave out over $1 billion in benefits, and that was an increase of about 20% from the year prior. So we're continuing to see growth of the program, and we have no reason to think that that trajectory won't continue. So here we just have a few statistics, and I won't go through these in detail, but this is now reaching a critical mass where we feel like we're reaching a significant number of people, but we also have a lot of work to do in getting the word out to underserved communities. And we as a department are committed to accessibility and increasing participation. So for fiscal year 24, we had 180,000 applications that were approved. And again, this represents about a 25% increase in volume from the year prior. Oh, one thing, Steve, if you can just go back for 1 second. One of the things I wanted to note here is that last year we had an increase in the number of individuals that gave birth and are taking medical leave to recover from childbirth, and then family leave to bond with their child. We are finding in years past that one might take a leave for one of those components, but not the other. And now we're seeing that increase, so that we consider that to be a gain that we hope to continue.
And Mary, just as you're going on, a question is, as an employer of two, would I pay into the fund in case they need it? So maybe at some point we can talk about the logistics of how this all works.
Sure, we can talk about employer contributions, but basically, if you are an employer of under 25 employees, then you do not make a contribution as the employer, but you are responsible for passing through and remitting the employee's contribution. If
Right.
you're a company of 25 or more, then you would also make a contribution towards it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine, putting that link in
Yeah,
there for
we
us.
have some serious chats happening, so that's great.
Yeah, yeah. So this is really just a visual to show you how the different types of leave have broken down over the past year. Medical leave to take care of your own serious health condition represents 64% of the volume. Um, uh, Family leave to bond with the child is 24%. Caring leave, where you're caring for a family member, is 11 or 12%. And then the military is really negligible, and that's something that we're putting some emphasis on this year to increase that participation. And here, I just wanted to show you these two charts together so that you can see the age distribution and also the gender distribution. And so my take on this is that we're really effectively communicating to most people who are, or many people who are in the childbearing years. And at this point, we're seeing significantly more females taking leave than males, but so we're looking at that population as one that can benefit from both medical leave to recover from childbirth and family leave to bond with your child. So I wanted to give you a few examples of how you can combine medical leave and family leave. Here we have a situation where the birthing parent needs to take some time off before giving birth to take care of a medical condition, and then wants to take time afterwards to bond with your child. So we have so much to go through. That I'm not going to go through this in great detail, but it's here for your reference so that you can see how you can really structure your leave to meet your individual circumstances. And one thing that I am so remiss for not having said earlier is that for the family leave to bond with your child, both both parents can take leave. So this is not the old-fashioned traditional model of taking maternity leave. This is intended to benefit the child by having both parents take part in leave. And again, it can be structured in whatever way makes sense for that individual family.
One question that I'm sure is emblematic of this whole thing is, does accrued PTO need to be exhausted before this support income? Right. So I think this, how do these things work together?
Yeah. Um, so an employer cannot require that an individual use their accrued PTO. However, an employee can opt to do that. So
To like piece it all together, in other words.
exactly. So there was some legislation passed a year or so ago where you can top off. And what that means is that you're probably going to get, 70%, let's say, of your current salary as a benefit for PFML. And if you want to use your PTO to get up to your average weekly wage, you can do so.
Perfect. Thank you.
Also,
we
can I just chime in? This is Tracy. If somebody is using their PTO, say someone takes 2 or 3 weeks of PTO, and then they want to come on to use one of the other protected leave programs, it is the responsibility of the employee and the employer to report that prior use of time, because that will come out of the total allotment that this employee would have. So you can't use 12 weeks of PTO to bond and then look for 12 weeks from us. You can't stack benefits.
Right. Trace, while you're on a roll there, do you want to just talk about disability and how that plays into the calculations?
Well, I think if you're getting disability payments,
I think so. Wasn't there a question in the chat about that?
I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's and you can combine disability up to 100%, correct?
Right. The point is if a person is out on leave, the general thought is if someone's out on leave, they shouldn't be collecting more than they would have collected out their average weekly wage had they been working. So usually we are the first payer. And then perhaps they have there's an additional short-term disability or a long-term disability policy that tops off or adds on to what we would have to get to whatever the levels of payment they would be.
And Jasmine just put in the chat a link to our webpage that really gives a little bit greater detail in terms of how you can structure those payments.
And are there contact people? Because I think that's what's the hardest thing when you have a question. Like, can folks contact you, Mary or Tracy? Like, what's the best way to get questions answered?
Can I chime in? This is Tracy. I say start with the website and the contact center.
Great.
They can answer almost everything that you have. And I'm just going to
Perfect.
pop off on this. Catherine's, I understand she has a question on here about STD, short-term disability payments. So if you have a short-term disability policy that pays 60%, what they're going to do is probably so say 60% was $600. Say we're paying you $400. We would pay you the 400, they would pay you 200 to get you to the 60. That's what I have seen. It's not that they're going to add their 60 on top of ours. That's where maybe topping off with possible paid time off would come in.
And then there's a question and maybe suggestion that it would be great to have an interactive training for early ed employers.
So each employer should have a leave administrator, and that individual will receive notifications when applications have been filed. And we do have some information that helps to walk an employer through what their roles and responsibilities are. We've done a number of trainings in the past, different webinars. Some of those are online, and we're happy to repeat those.
That would
Tracy
be great. Thanks,
have met
Mary.
with a number of, not saying a number isn't even close, a large number of employers where we've been able to answer any questions that they have and provide some training as to how they can make sure that they have integrity in the program and are meeting their responsibilities.
And Kelly's asking like even language that they can put in their staff handbook,
Yeah.
like all of those templates. Great.
So there's just so much to talk about with this program. And I wanted to just make a point here that adopted children and foster children are also eligible for, or their parents are eligible for family leave. Here we've provided an example of adoption. And so, again, just driving home the point that both parents can take the leave. They don't need to take it at the same time. They can take different leave schedules. It's really tailored, or they can tailor it to meet their own individual family needs.
Even what you said, like this is not your like kind of historical maternity leave, that this is something different.
Exactly, exactly. So here we've just provided a few tips for parents. Again, stressing the point that you can take up to 20 weeks of medical leave in a benefit year to take care of your own recovery from childbirth, and then that you can apply up to 60 days before your leave starts or retroactively 90 days after your leave start date. So there's a good bit of flexibility there. And again, I've already mentioned that this can be taken by both parents. Here we have some considerations for, thanks, Amy, for a child with a serious health condition. Again, a parent can take time in whatever schedule works best for them. If they're taking a part-time leave or an intermittent leave, that's a scenario that they need to work out with the employer to make sure that they can come up with a schedule that works for both. We do have a waiting week before an individual starts to receive benefits. I don't know, Tracy, if you know all the scenarios here. Do you want to talk a little bit about the waiting week and how that works with medical and
Sure.
pregnancy?
So a lot of time, the first week of leave is an unpaid week, as Mary mentioned. What I see often is that the employee taking leave will use PTO for that week, so that they are not without any income, and then the paid benefits from the agency kick in starting thereafter. The only exception to this unpaid week is if a person is taking a medical leave portion to recover from childbirth. And then the very next day after that ends, they start their bonding. When it transitions from, the medical leave ends on a Tuesday, the bonding starts on the very next day, which is a Wednesday. There's no second waiting week. So that's kind of an important thing for people to know that we won't have that. And we do have requirements that if people are going to be being paid in full, is not using our benefit, that we get told that at the beginning, when people are applying. But it's pretty clear through the process of going through the links that were sent out to both the employees and the employers when you're going through the process of what the information is that we're looking for.
I can't believe it's already 10 o'clock.
I know. Well, why don't we, what I can do is, I mean, there's so much questions and there's so many questions in chat. We'll send all the questions to you. We'll, thanks to Steve, we'll make the slides available so folks will at least have that. And then we would love to have you come back and or work in partnership with you on a webinar where you have more time than 30 minutes to get this. I think this is an incredible amount of information, and just it is, as somebody said, it's so helpful for people just to hear this, like from the department, firsthand. So any other kind of high level or things that you were going to cover that we just didn't have a chance to get to?
Gosh, there's so much information. I guess one of the things that I would add is that we are really committed to accessibility. All of our applications and materials are now available in 7 different languages.
Wonderful.
So someone, if their preferred language is not English, they can select using a little widget to apply in another language. We also have a contact center where they are also multilingual, but have access to an interpretation service for up to 240 different languages.
Wow. I'm sure that question would have come up. That's incredible. Great. There's one last question. If intermittent leave is used the total time of 12 weeks, or is it 12 regardless of time that is used each week?
So Tracy, you can chime in here too.
Sure.
But I think what we're talking about is it's a total of 12 weeks, and you can spread that out.
However, with that, okay.
Throughout the benefit years. You want to add to that, Trace?
No, that's correct. It's, if it's a full-time employee and they take one day, that doesn't count as a week. That's just
A day.
1/5 of a week.
Right.
So it's proportional.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we're so grateful for you to join us this morning and would love to think about follow-up. We'll make sure that we have the slides. And if you want to add a thank you for any of the things that came up, the questions that aren't on the slides, if there are links to that, but I'm sure it's all there. But thank you so much for joining us, and we would love to have you come back and then hopefully maybe do a partnership webinar where we have longer to share the information.
We would love that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. And this week on the 9:30 call, we know tomorrow we have Sarah Sean coming around. This is a kind of a government week. Sarah Seaman for the Department of Early Education and Care. And then Commissioner Kershaw will be with us on Thursday morning. So thank you so much. And we will see you this week on the call. Take care.